A lot of people believe I should die for what I've done. I don't agree. I have no anger towards anybody, but that doesn't mean I don't think the death penalty is wrong. And that's our homie, William Bonin.
Oh, Billy Bonin. This is it. This is the finale for real,
We've
y'all.
made it, y'all, to the end. Pod 5.
Pod 5. This is Jen.
This is Becky.
This is too close to home. See, that's how it was filmed about, well, although Rasputin was smelly and weird, I can't imagine how doing 5 episodes of that was.
Yikes. I'm so ready to be done with him. Done with him and done with all of his horrible things.
Done with it.
Done with it.
So let's get in.
All right. So we left off, and Bonin's now in custody, being investigated to see if he's the freeway killer. And now it's time for them to find evidence to keep him there. So remember, he was with the kid, and they were surveilling him, and they went up and knocked on the back, and all they have him on right now is sodomy and oral copulation of a minor.
I like you're like the only thing they have.
I know, right?
Nothing. It's basically misdemeanors.
Basically petty theft. So now they're trying to gather evidence to be able to keep him in jail. So far, we know that he's been pretty good at keeping the evidence to a minimum. He stripped the victims naked. He didn't keep anything. So as detectives begin to investigate more heavily, there were 40 potential victims starting in 1973 that they were trying to wean through and see which ones were related to Bonin and which ones did not. So they're trying to find things on the victims that belong to Bonin. In the end, Bonin killed 6 with Vernon Butts, 2 with Gregory Miley, 2 with Eric Windigence, 1 with Billy Pugh, and 1 with James Morano, and 10 alone. Bonin was initially charged with murder in connection with Charles Miranda, killed on February 3rd, 1980, with Greg Miley. While waiting arraignment, he was placed with an inmate who was intentionally put in there trying to pump info from him. Bonin later wrote in his diary, "He tried to get information out of me, but I didn't give him anything. Either time." 1 week later, the district attorney refused to file the single murder charge, and he was instead charged with the sodomy and the oral copulation with the minor.
Was he like, this is too much to deal with, like, meh?
No, he was like, there's no evidence. There's not enough for me to make a case against him.
Oh, I'll make a case.
Right.
I hate him so much. I'm like, can we get this going? Like, sir, can we get you in jail for this?
I'm sure that's exactly how the detectives felt.
Like, please, you don't know how many sleepless nights we have. I've been divorced 3 times during this.
So while he's sitting in on those 2 charges, detectives obtained search warrants and began to question acquaintances, work associates, family, and friends. 1 search warrant wanted samples of Bonin's blood, saliva, pubic hair, body hair, head hair, and teeth impressions.
Okay, the whole cake and boodle. Okay, I like it.
So during all the autopsies of these victims, several of them were found to have bite marks on them in different areas. And saliva was found on them during the autopsies in weird places like on the victims' nipples. And yeah, I left a lot of that stuff out during it.
For a second there, I thought that you were going to say something like his armpits, though. I don't know why that was the first thing. That or eyeballs.
I guess, to me, like I always thought of like sucking on nipples is like a man on a woman thing. I guess men on men do that too.
Yep.
I don't know what they
must be. Jimmy, is your nipple sensitive? JJ? Okay. Consensus says they like the nipple play. I'll get you.
That was quite a jump from are your nipples sensitive to they
Listen,
like
I'm just doing what you did the other day when he touched him on his anus.
Jennifer asked, "Are your nipples sensitive?" Got it. You want me to play with them in bed? I don't think that's what he said.
You know what I'm going to do? Is I'm going to buy like those chip bag clips.
No,
but
judging by his face,
ones,
he looks excited.
He ain't going to have no nipples after that. Pop it right off.
On June 12th, while search warrants, that's a new word I made up, guys. On June 12th, while search warrants were being obtained, Monroe heard on the radio that Bonin had been arrested and was suspected of being the freeway killer. And Monroe said, "I'm out, I'm kicking rocks," and he took off across the U.S. Now we're going to jump down the road a month to June 30th.
Oh my God, that was like last week for us.
Bonin is still in jail when they requested his bond be $250,000, which is equal to $1.1 million in 2023. Now, keep in mind, he's still only held on sodomy and oral copulation, and they're like, "Let's make this bond $1.1 million," and the judge was like, "Deal."
Like, listen, sir, you could have given me $5 of a bond and I would not have gotten that joker out.
Girl, right? So they agreed to it because he was being investigated for all this other stuff, his past, yada, yada, yada. I know y'all don't want to hear it again. So they went.
You don't want to hear about him grabbing people's genitals again?
No, I don't.
And how he's cured?
Every time they relived a murder in here, I was like, fast forward through the pages when I say fast forward through my Kindle. Yes. Swipe right.
I swipe left on this story, sir.
Scott Frazier was the first interviewed about the murders, but denied knowing anything, which is partially true. He only knew about the one, the Marcus Grab stabbing in the van. Later, Frazier got mixed up in some drug charges and was talking with detectives. And it was kind of one of those, you tell us what you know, we'll,
you help me, I help you.
And at first he was like, I don't know shit.
Pro, whatever that word is.
Right. At first he was like, I don't know shit, which he really didn't know shit. But then they showed him a nap. Then they showed him a map.
And you saying that you want a nap, that's a Freudian slip,
exactly
okay?
What it is.
I know you because I also love naps.
And so the map was his home, Bonin's home, the liquor store, and where Stephen Wood was walking when he was abducted. Frazier said all this sudden when he looked at the map and thought about all the deaths and thought about they were all young boys and how much Bonin liked young boys, that it literally just clicked in his head. The detective said literally the hair stood up on his arms and he was like, oh, shit, he might really be the one that did all this. So that's when he decided to tell them about Bonin telling him about the Marcus Grabs murder. In a mistaken hope of creating an alibi, though, he lied and said that Vernon Butts was involved. But in a lucky twist of fate, without Frazier knowing it, this means now they're going to go talk to Butts.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, the start point for Frazier was Bonin and Butts, both murdering Grabs. Frazier gave...
That doesn't sound like a candle company to you, Bonin and Butts?
Oh, Jennifer always with her positive twist.
That sounds like a soy candle business.
Frazier then gave them multiple names of accomplices, not because he knew they were, but because he was giving names to people who hung out at the house. So he starts naming all these people, and they all just happen to be murder accomplices. So it was like Pugh told him a little bit, led him to Frazier, he told him a little bit, and it just kind of starts unfolding, and everything just starts spilling into the detectives' laps unknowingly to these people. So detectives started trying to match dates, names, and murders. They were able to rule out victims during the 12 weeks that Bonin was in custody, and they kind of started from there. At Bonin's trial, Frazier testified, I thought I knew him very well and actually considered him a nonviolent person. So Vernon Butts' house was immediately placed under surveillance. Having attempted suicide 3 times in the past, he tried again on July 21st, the same day Frazier was talking to detectives. Had he been successful, a major source of pending information would have been lost. 3 days later, Butts returned home from the hospital, and the detectives immediately swooped in and started interviewing him. So the source of his suicide attempt was Bonin was in jail, and he started kind of reliving everything and freaking out, and that's why he attempted suicide. So then he had, a 3-day hold, yada, yada. He gets out, so he's in kind of a fragile mental state when they go interview him. So the detectives immediately interviewed Butts, and he readily admitted, I was present for 6 murders and knew about another one. Knowing the game was up, he went to a shed and retrieved a black address book with the ID cards belonging to Darren Kendrick. So this was the wallet that he had kept from the murder that Bonin didn't know that he had kept. And he gave them to the detective. So now they're like, oh shit, now we got some cold, hard evidence. Butts also revealed...
Just the way he likes it. Cold and hard.
Just the way he likes it. Butts also revealed the bottle of chloral hydrate used in the drugging of Kendrick. They took Butts to the station where he was questioned further, and he agreed to take them to various sites where bodies were left. He provided hair, blood, and saliva samples. He was then booked on murder charges. Bonin was then charged and arraigned on July 25th for the murder of Marcus Grabs. Over the next 4 days, Butts was giving interviews, going on road trips, just living that fast and furious life of when they first get caught and they're like, I'm going to tell it all. Look at me. I'm somebody. Butts said, I was present, but Bonin committed them. I just went along with him. Bonin would talk to me like a drill sergeant. He had this dominant personality, but he also had a charismatic personality that hooked the kids in. And with me, he was a very passionate lover. When I read that, I was like, Jesus.
He ain't there. That's for sure.
Butts is also quoted saying, "We shared a good little nightmare." Yeah.
Sir. Yeah, I bet he named his pick too. Like Little Stabby or something. He seems very like he's romanticizing a lot of this.
Oh, wait till you hear all the stuff he tells later. On July 29th, Bonin and Butts were charged with murders in relation to the freeway killer, and they made the headline of the papers. It ran nationally, no doubt, reaching his other accomplices all over the country at this time. Once the interviews and the road trips ended, Butts finally stopped talking on the advice of his attorney. But he done told it all.
Bruh, what do you say when a cop wants to talk to you about a crime? That
Nah,
you
bro,
might
I'm gonna
have
need an attorney.
Yeah, I'm gonna need an attorney. We ain't talking until my attorney.
Nope.
I want my attorney now.
Becky, you ran that stop sign. I need an attorney.
So you are jaywalking. I plead the fifth. Get my attorney right now.
Back in Port Huron, Michigan, the varied travels of Jim Morano were about to end. So he done went all the way from California to Michigan. So one afternoon, he made the mistake of calling his friend Tammy back in Long Beach. So they had already went around and talked to his people trying to find him. So Tammy was like, "Oh, I was just about to get in the shower. Give me like an hour and call me back." Direct quote, just kidding. She told him to call back, and she called detectives and told him, "Hey, he's about to call back. I know y'all looking for him." So police were notified in Michigan and that he may only be there for a little while. So when he called Tammy back, she kept him on the phone for 30 minutes while police were able to track him and quietly take him into custody. Didn't take long for him to spill his guts either. But of course, he would too say that he was forced to do everything he did or be killed. On August 5th, Morano was back in California and back in court. He pled not guilty and was held on a bond of $450,000, which is $1.8 million in today.
God damn.
So Bonin goes back to court on August 8th, and he pleads not guilty to all charges. But now evidence is starting to mount. We're starting to get people to talk. We're getting people to hand things over. Semen was found on one victim that matched Bonin's blood type. The nylon rope from the van possessed detectable human blood stains. The van carpeting had blood stains that had tried to be washed out.
Bro, there's probably more than just bloodstains in that carpet.
100%. 4 areas of blood were found in Bonin's home, and although they couldn't be matched to victims due to technology of the time, they did come back as highly probable matches. Numerous hairs were found on the victims that also matched Bonin, and fibers were also found on the victims that matched his van. So, he slowly is all closing in on him. Just 2 weeks after the murders of Charles Miranda and James McCabe, on February 3rd, 1980, Greg Miley had moved to Houston. Remember, right? H-Town.
It's called Slap City, baby.
He was arrested on August 22nd, 1980. Scott Frazier had been contacted as part of a trap. So he called him and was like, "Hey, I got a friend. They need a place to stay. Do you mind? Can you meet her down at the Dairy Queen?" He was like, Cool. I got you." So as soon as he left, detectives came in and they arrested him. During his initial interview, he denied knowing Bonin, but after detectives were like, "Look, bro, we got this. He was like, "All right, fuck it. Yeah, he likes to kill folks." Direct quote from the interviews.
I gots to get me a murder. By far my favorite quote you've ever done. I gots to have that. I gots to.
So now we're only 2 months after Bonin's arrest, and now 4 of his 6 co-conspirators are in jail too. The only 2 not.
I bet he's having a lot of records right now. At this point. Like, God damn it.
Shit.
I said the last time, no witnesses. And what did I do? I left a trail.
I bet that's exactly what he was thinking. At this point, Monroe's been considered for a deal. Butts is looking at the death penalty. Miley might possibly get a deal. And Bonin, yeah. Butts later said, "Spilling my guts to the police without a lawyer was probably a mistake." Y'all funk? So
listen, at least you got to bargain some. Come on now.
Now they're starting to get everything together. All right, so what are we going to do when we go to trial? So the DA offered Butts 25 years without the possibility of parole to testify against Bonin. He turned it down, claiming he wasn't taking a deal, because he was innocent and forced to do everything he did.
Okay.
This is now a point where I'm sure you're all saying the same thing as us. Oh, okay, you're a freaking idiot. You should have jumped at the 25.
Right?
Keep in mind, he's only like 22 at this point. So he's going to get out when he's 47 if he takes the steal.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, he's very, very young. So it's like, bruh, take your 25, do it. But, you know, he's
If
not the
I was
smartest.
him, first off, I would have named my ice pick. Secondly, I absolutely would have been trying to bargain with them. How about 15?
How about 24? During a 45-minute ride from the men's jail to Orange County to face charges, Butts was placed with 6 other inmates who at this time, everybody's starting to find out who he is. Like, as he's going to the van, people are like looking at him, other inmates. So these 6 are all like, oh shit, you know, we're about to be in the van with him. And they started asking questions.
I think they were probably thinking their best interview questions too, weren't they?
Oh, I'm sure.
With their shivs.
Without the prompting of the police, as soon as they get in, they start asking him questions, which he readily answered. 3 of these inmates would later agree to be questioned. He, of course, told truths and half-truths, but saying everything was Bonin, and he knew that the most he would get was 25 and that he was already planning a book. They said he would laugh and smile while telling them of the gruesome stuff, causing some of them to tell him, I hope you get the fucking gas chamber. One inmate recounted he told them he had no remorse.
All right, Jen.
I
need you to get your shit together.
One inmate recounted he told them he had no remorse and didn't feel any badness at all for what they had done. And when they asked him if he would do it again, he said he wouldn't know for sure until that time.
No. I have to see if the mood strikes me, okay? Will I catch a vibe? That's
exactly what he told him. Butts talked about how he was trying to get involuntary manslaughter when one inmate asked him. So he's like, I'm trying to get involuntary manslaughter. And the inmate was like, bruh, do you really fucking think that's going to happen? Now, this is loosely based on the actual transcript. Butts was like, yeah, dude. And he was like, the inmate did say, how the hell do you think that will happen? You drove the van while Bonin murdered in the back. You killed at his home. And you seen a corpse that Bonin brought over. He said, Butts looked at him, shrugged his shoulders, and said, well, I was forced to do it. He truly believed that this was going to get him off with voluntary manslaughter or nothing at all because, quote unquote, Bonin forced him to do it. Even the other inmates were like, brah.
Sir.
We're criminals too.
You're a silly goose. Get back in the pond.
Yes, that was the other part of the transcript I left out. Needless to say that when Butts was in jail, it wasn't a walk in the park. He was threatened many times by the inmates. One inmate went up to him and told him, said to him, so you're this big scary guy who's killed all these people? He was like, you don't look like much of a man. And he was like, you like killing little boys? Well, how about you come with me, a real man, and try something? And they, you know, I'm sure Butts literally pissed his pants at that point. But they said they were fucking with them all the time. Because let me tell you, from working in the prison system, they don't like when you fuck with kids. There is a code amongst criminals, and they do not like when you fuck with kids.
Mm-hmm. They want to make sure that you'll never do that again.
Mm-hmm.
And that involves a lot of blind spots on the camera.
Mm-hmm. Facts. Pound of facts.
Hashtag.
So December began the preliminary hearings. In early December, Bonin began writing each murder story and giving them to his attorney. So he would write the murder story of one. That's how I had like so much detail about the murders. He wrote stories basically.
Bruh.
And he gave them to his attorney one at a time and told him, just put these away for right now.
Like, this is the worst series ever.
Yeah. He was hoping to like use them as like leverage at some point in the trial. Like, if I tell you everything and give you all this, what are you going to do with me? What are you going to do with me?
What? You scratch my
They were
back,
like,
I
pretty
scratch
much,
yours?
we're not going to do anything for you.
Put your ass in jail.
The final one was completed 2 months later. He also kept his diary, and he kept stories about every day in the prison and everything that happened. And if you want to read all about him, check out the book.
I just imagine, because now I've seen pictures of him. He's got the long dark hair, little
70s porn star mustache.
Yeah, little tiny mustache, no beard, and him like laying on his belly on his little cot in his orange jumpsuit, just feet kicking back over the air. Dear diary, today someone called me a pedophile, And then I took my shank and I stabbed him right in the butthole.
This is exactly how I picture it too. Thanks for painting that for us, Jen.
Tuesday, May 30th. Oh, they told me that I couldn't touch people's anuses anymore.
Girl, he talked about Christmas music. He talked about going through the holidays. Talked about an inmate pouring out a pot of coffee. It got tedious, and I was like, skip. I don't give a fuck.
Like, bro, you've worked in a prison. You've worked around inmates. It is about 99% monotonous ridiculousness.
Yes.
And then 1% excitement.
Yes. True story. True story, y'all.
Like, sir, I already lived through this.
She's
I don't need this.
Giving facts. Exactly. I'm like, this was a day at work. This was a day at work.
I know about commissary. I know how this works.
Oh, yeah. They went on a long thing about commissary and getting the newspapers. I'm like, I know how this works. You said how one guy wasn't in line in time, and the guy was like, the other inmate collecting commissary orders was like, fuck you, you should have been in line. And I'm like, true story, that really happened.
It's like talking to that one weird aunt that everyone has that she's like telling you about her Thursday afternoon, but like nobody asked her what her Thursday afternoon was like.
Yes, that's exactly what it was like. Oh, girl, you hit the nail on the head. Yes. Bonin believed the more information he was able to offer, the better chance for a deal, resulting in life versus the death penalty. He knew he wasn't leaving, but he was just hoping to get life. First up was Miley for the 2 February 3rd, 1980 slayings of Charles Miranda and James McCabe. The grisly story was laid out by Detective Kushner, and his attorney argued that he had an IQ of 56 and he was unable to comprehend the situation. Miley's case was separate from Bonin and Butts, and he was scheduled his arraignment on December 18th. So they had decided to do Bonin and Butts' trial together.
He's lucky that he wasn't in that, because if he were all together, they could have seen how much of a cohesive unit it is.
Mm.
And an attorney can get information from another case blocked from being spoken about in court.
Yes.
There's like, everybody knows that the law can be taken in any which way. And then you have some wily ass motherfucking lawyers coming in there, and they're just going to do it by the skin of their teeth, just barely, probably not following the rules.
Yes. 100%. So all this is going on. These guys are going to their preliminaries and arraignments and yada, yada, yada. Out of nowhere, Eric Windigence was arrested in early December for the murder of Harry Turner on March 24th, 1980. He came in for questioning and was arrested at the time. Now, his arrest was kept secret for a while, and then it hit the papers. On December 9th, Bonin was in his cell when he heard an inmate next door ask, "How many of you are there?" Bonin was kind of taken by surprise, and he replied, "Well, what do you mean?" And then that's when the inmate told him that another accomplice was arrested. And the dude was like, legit, like, how many accomplices do you fucking have? Because we're at 5 now. And what murderer has 5 fucking accomplices?
Just
that is rare.
Floating out there.
Yeah. You just got motherfuckers all over the place murdering with you. Even the inmates are like, shit, this is shocking. And they're in prison.
Bro, I hate to say this, but like the Candyman, he did a better job. He at least killed most of his accomplices before he'd kill one before he got another. No witnesses. What are you doing, Bonin?
Right? Stop trusting people.
Fucking rookie. Rookie mistakes.
He thought, so he told him another accomplice was arrested, and he thought it was Billy Pugh. Bonin had already figured out that it was Pugh. So reading newspaper articles,
just love all these
hearing
names.
stuff, reading
Bonin,
affidavits.
Butts, Pugh.
I know. Taking all the information Bonin had, he already was figuring out that Pugh was the one that tipped it off and started the whole unraveling. Following Eric's arrest, Bonin began to write about their meeting when he met Eric. Confusion about dates and murders led Bonin to believe that Eric was being charged for a murder that he didn't actually participate, and it led Bonin to do an interview stating that Eric was completely innocent. So up until the end, Bonin fought for Eric not to be indicted in any of the murders. And it later goes on to say that Bonin actually loved him. And so he was willing to do anything, pin it on anybody, say anything to keep him from being arrested.
Jimmy, you better be like that, okay? I want it.
If you don't have love for me the way Bonin did for Eric, I don't want it.
I don't want it. It's not worth it, okay? If you're not willing to put yourself and everybody else in prison to keep me in, the free world with money, I don't want it.
I don't want it either.
I don't want it.
But my husband would sing like a canary. I have to get rid of him.
Listen, Jimmy didn't even want to lie on his W-4 where he writes that he's filing married, and I was like, well, put filing single, they'll take more money, but I'm married. I have to write down that. Motherfucker, you don't want to have to pay for taxes later. I'm helping you.
This one too. This one too.
But I'm married. If I say I'm single.
Okay, we're not at the bar. If we're at the bar and you're by yourself, that's exactly what you say at the beginning of every sentence.
You know, they probably thought it was a trick question too. They were like,
probably.
She waiting on me to slip and say I'm single. She waiting.
If you're at the bar and someone looks in your direction, I want you to shout across the bar, I'm married.
It better be like Rip off of Yellowstone. Like, listen, I have a wife. And if you don't go, she gonna fuck you up, and then she gonna fuck me up.
Exactly. The correct response is always I'm married, except for the W4.
Yeah. Always holding single rate, guys. Always.
Proud of you. Proud of you. But bring it down a notch. So Bonin and Butts were being tried together, and their hearing was scheduled for December 11th, 1980. The initial hearing lasted 6 days and was called over 50 witnesses. Now, this ain't even the trial, bruh. This is just where we're laying out all the evidence and making sure we can try you for everything. Butts was recounted as being odd and laughing when seeing pictures of the victim's wounds.
Bruh, that's when you automatically, all right, then motherfucker, slate him for trial.
Yeah, nope. We can end this right now.
There ain't no problem. Look at that motherfucker. He's the probable cause of all of this.
But he was really bothered that they were bringing in all the occult stuff and insinuating that had something to do with it. Bless the Bubba heart. It's so bad for him.
Oh.
Bonin asked his attorney to contact the prosecutor's office to arrange a deal for him to tell everything in exchange for a life sentence versus the death penalty. So they were like, all right, cool. So they called the prosecutor. They brought in all the detectives from all the jurisdictions. So there was 11 detectives.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. And he's like, all right, what y'all want to know? Now, Bonin said he sat down with the detectives. There were some vague statements signed stating, maybe we'll take the death penalty off the table. Maybe we won't. Basically, it all summed up to, they were like, all right, tell us everything. What you tell us, if we do decide to seek the death penalty, cannot be used against you. Everything you said cannot be, held accountable for, yada, yada. But tell us everything, and then we'll kind of make a decision from there based on what you say.
Right. Sorry, that was Luna. She like popped her head in just the tiniest bit. The door went back. And then she did it again. And
she was like, oh, Bonin still, I'm good.
Wait. What? No. Well, hold on. Never mind. I get with you later, girl.
So once they all sat down, 11 hours of taped interviews then went on. He went on to tell of the murders, the people involved, how Butts was not afraid of him and was a willing participant. And then he went on to address Pugh and Eric. He tried to say that Eric was innocent of anything. He said that someone was involved in the Turner murder, and that was the guy who got this whole thing rolling, which was Pugh. He then went into the whole story of that account. He made sure that every version of every story that he told was so that Eric wouldn't face any charges. At the end of it all, they were like, so we have a very difficult decision, and basically alluded to the fact that the death penalty was going to be hard to pull off the table.
Yeah. After you made all that.
He also told the detectives during the interview that he could tell them where to find Sean King's body, who still hadn't been recovered at this time. When the interview concluded, he left with them to recover the body. A few days later, his body was found. When all the prelims were done and they all awaited their trials, Bonin reflected in his diary. Murder became like a compulsion that I just couldn't stop. When I got uptight, I would go out and kill. Sometimes after I killed, I'd look for another victim on my way home. I got so that I was always looking for a victim. I'd even use my money for gas before food. The gas was necessary so I could search out more victims. This is the end of a hellacious nightmare, and I'm glad it's over.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Bill, God damn it.
I think there was a part of him that truly could not control the urge to kill. And I'm sure, although he's never said, that there was probably a part of him that wanted to stop killing. But it becomes a compulsion,
just like how,
and they can't.
Like, people want to stop gambling or, I would say murder's a little high.
A little different.
A little different than trying not to sneak a Reese's Pieces or something, but I can understand. There's an urge.
I get the urge. Not the urge to murder,
I
but
mean,
I get
we
the
all
urge.
have intrusive thoughts. Like, what if I just turn off the highway right now? But do we do it? No, we don't.
There's a foresight then to Jennifer's darker side of mind.
You're like
Moving
making a note
on.
to never let that bitch drive. That's not another what's wrong with Aunt Diane.
I'm just going to just graze right over that and carry on. At a preliminary hearing held in Los Angeles County before the judge Julius Leatham on January 2nd, 1981, Bonin was formally pleaded innocent to 14 first-degree murder charges and numerous counts of sodomy, robbery, and, I didn't know this was a charge, mayhem.
Oh, charge me now. Lock me up, baby. I'm guilty.
Fucking stupid. In 11 of these indictments, a felony murder robbery special circumstances was also alleged. So when you have a special circumstance, you're basically saying this was an especially heinous attack, murder, and
like
that's what
order SVU.
Slightly different. The special circumstances
Is Olivia
qualifies
Benson
you.
there? Tell me Olivia Benson there.
She was.
I fucking love her.
The special circumstances qualifies you for the death penalty. So, like, I learned when I was at the prison by reading inmate files that in order to
I love that flex you just get.
in order to be charged with the death penalty in the state of Florida is, so let's say I go in and I rob a gas station, I walk into rob, I pop the guy, he's down, he's dead. All right, you can't give me the death penalty because, yes, it was a murder, but there was nothing special, so to speak, about it. But let's say I go in, I shoot him.
There's not something extra fucked up.
Right.
Like you shoot him and then you shove a log up his butt to see if he's dead.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be that special. Let's say I shoot him. He's bleeding out. He's alive. He's pleading for help. I rip the phone lines out because this is back in the day when there's phone lines, no cell phones. Or I take his cell phone away. I lock the doors and he sits there for 4 hours before he bleeds to death.
God damn.
That's a special circumstances because it's considered a torturous death. So therefore, the death penalty can be seeked.
I like it. I like that.
Seek,
That's a good rule.
suck, sought,
You know what we mean.
suck.
Cannot. I feel like I'm
Jimmy's
in fourth
answers
grade.
always suck.
It's always suck. I feel like I'm in 5th grade. Like,
I'm like, fajitas or tacos suck. It's not what was on the table, sir.
that was an answer I was not anticipating.
There was no option 3.
I'm like, what?
Bonin was ordered to return to court on January 7th for pretrial motions and the formal setting of a trial date. On the same day, January 2nd, Butts was arraigned on 5 counts of murder in addition to 3 counts of robbery. The date of Butts' formal plea was delayed by the judge until January 7th. 4 days after his formal plea, Butts committed suicide by hanging himself with a towel in his cell. A coroner's investigation revealed that Butts had unsuccessfully attempted to take his life on at least 4 occasions prior to his arrest. His attorney theorized that Butts' depressive state had been magnified by the impending release of transcripts of his client's testimony at the preliminary hearing, in which Butts had graphically described the torture the victims had endured prior to their murder.
Oh, now you're going to get embarrassed? Now you are, sir?
Well, so there was a lot of stuff that I left out about Butts and Bonin's back and forth with their interviews and whatnot. And Butts kept saying, like, so I didn't really say anything criminally,
negligent? What?
no,
Criminally
like,
inclined? Criminally intended?
criminally, like, accused, criminally, like, where
Oh, shit.
you can cause them to be arrested.
Probable cause?
No, but we'll go with that. I didn't really say anything that would get him in any criminal trouble. And they're like,
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. What is that word?
you told about all the murders. You gave us wallet. You gave us the chemicals that you used on somebody. Yeah, sure. You didn't say anything that we can charge you with criminally.
No.
Like, he was very delusional in the beginning about everything and like thinking that he was going to get involuntary manslaughter. And I think it was all fun and games when he was telling the detectives and he was telling other inmates. But once everything that he did was about to come to the spotlight and everybody...
Damn it. I'm like, now this is going to drive me crazy. I'm like, what word
I know. I'm going to have to
this?
go look on my Kindle just so I know. Once it was all really going to come how much of a sick, twisted person he was, I think he was not prepared for the whole world to know. And he couldn't handle it. And I think he was getting scared in jail because people were fucking with him.
Yeah.
And
he's going to do it on his terms versus
your thought
the
that you were going to
state or
get
the other people around you.
voluntary manslaughter and get out is now quickly becoming the fairy tale that you wished it was. And you realize you about to do some serious time, bruh, if not for the rest of your life.
Yeah, a lot
Especially
of
when they
times
find out
put
about the
those-
ice pick thing.
They put them in the, like, ad seg, you know, like where they're segregated from the rest of it, and you end up living a very solitary life. And a lot of these very notorious killers do, because they can't be put around because of the risk to their life, even though it's garbage of a life. They got to keep him alive so he can live out his punishment.
Right. And Bonin had even told them about the ice pick with the sledgehammer thing and how it shocked him. Because I will
listen, if you shock William Bonin,
yeah,
bruh.
Because I will say he was sick and he murdered and he did sick things, but he didn't like the blood, he didn't like the guts, he didn't like
wasn't
that
the
stuff.
focus for him. The only reason
that
he
stuff
really
like shocked him and grossed him out. Although he did much.
he liked to beat the brakes off people,
right?
But also not the same.
He also liked to beat the brakes off them where they didn't bleed. He wasn't all about that life.
Yeah, he wasn't about
He
that.
did the one stabbing and was like, no, this ain't the life for me. So
it was really messy. I don't have Dexter set up with about 30 pounds of saran wrap. This is disgusting. This is how bloodborne illnesses are
this
spread.
Is too far.
Too far.
Exactly. I could get hepatitis. 3 months prior to Butt's suicide, he had rejected the plea guilty to all charges for the 25 years. At the time of Butt's suicide, he had not agreed to accept any form of a plea bargain or testify against Bonin. He still kept acting like they were friends. So all this has been going on. These people are doing this, the people are doing that. And during it, Bonin is providing interviews to this one news reporter with CBS, Lopez. So on January 9th, 1981, Bonin made his third interview with Lopez, a CBS TV reporter, for 2 hours, where he shocked him by telling him about all of the murders in detail and confessing to everything.
Good damn.
He told all of the murders the truth except for the one leaving Eric out. But Lopez was compelled to keep the confession interview a secret, and it never aired. Shocking, right?
Very shocking.
Both Miley and Monroe agreed to testify against Bonin at his impending trials in exchange for being spared the death penalty. In the case of Miley, Norris, which was the prosecutor, agreed to accept 2 separate pleas of guilty to first-degree murder in exchange for 2 concurrent sentences of life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 25 years if Miley agreed to testify against Bonin. William Pugh also agreed to testify, having plead guilty to 1 count of voluntary manslaughter, for which he later served 6 years in prison. Bonin was brought to trial in Los Angeles County, charged with the murder of 12 of his victims whose bodies had found within the area on October 19, 1981. His trial commenced on November 5th, 1981. Norris, acting as prosecutor, sought the death penalty for each count of murder for which Bonin was tried, stating in his opening speech to the jury, "We will prove he is the freeway killer, as he has bragged to a number of witnesses. We will show you that he enjoyed the killings. Not only did he enjoy it and plan to enjoy it, he had an insatiable demand, an insatiable appetite, not only for sodomy, but for killing." Norris further elaborated that Bonin had followed a depressingly familiar routine in his murders of luring or forcing victims into his van before overpowering and binding his victims. Miley and Morano testified against Bonin at the Los Angeles County trial, describing in graphic detail the murders in which they had accompanied Bonin. In his testimony delivered on November 17th, Monroe stated that shortly after the murder of Wells, he and Bonin drove to a McDonald's restaurant and purchased hamburgers with the $10 taken from Wells' wallet. And he also recounts Bonin saying, "Thanks, Steve," for the burgers. Miley testified to his participation in the murders of Miranda and McCabe, describing in graphic detail how the 2 victims were beaten and tortured with various instruments before their murder, and how he had heard a bunch of bones cracking as Bonin had pressed a tire iron against Miranda's neck. Miley continued his testimony with the words, "The kid vomited. I jumped down on him the same way, killing the guy." Several members of the audience hastily left the courtroom as Bonin's accomplice delivered their testimony, later stating to reporters gathered outside the courtroom that they had found the recited details too nauseating. They said people couldn't even stay in the courtroom and listen to it.
I don't blame them.
You're welcome for
Especially-
bringing this to you guys when people couldn't tolerate it. You're welcome.
This is exactly what you guys asked for, wasn't it?
Right? The strategy of Bonin's defense attorneys was to challenge the credibility of numerous prosecution witnesses and to suggest the extremely significant mitigating factors as the root causes of Bonin's behavior. Basically saying he didn't have a loving childhood. It's all their fault. To support this contention, Bonin's defense attorney summoned different experts talking about the abuse, yada yada. It causes this, yada yada. Don't give a fuck because it doesn't matter what you went to. What? Oh,
Dancing like little Yachty.
I don't give a fuck what happens. It doesn't justify picking up all these children and raping and murdering them. There's no justification for it. Just in case some of you out there are thinking about doing it and think you got some justification, you don't. Against overruled objections from Bonin's defense attorney, David Lopez, the reporter, waived his previously sought immunity under California's Shield Law and agreed to testify on behalf of the prosecution as to the details of the interviews Bonin had granted him between December 1980 and April 1981. In his testimony, he stated that Bonin had informed him that he would refuse to talk with any other reporter if Lopez would agree not to broadcast the precise details of his interview. Lopez had agreed to these conditions, and Bonin had confessed to him on January 9th that he was indeed the freeway killer and that he had killed 21 victims. Bonin testified the victims' ages had ranged from 12 to 19, and his youngest victim, McCabe, being the easiest victim to kill. According to Lopez, Bonin had confided that although he resented the prospect of being executed, he had opted to kill repeatedly simply because he had enjoyed, quote-unquote, the sound of kids dying. Lopez had testified Bonin had informed him he had killed one victim by repeatedly punching him in the throat.
Yeah.
And that the primary incentive for his revealing the location of King's body to authorities had actually been his knowledge police would purchase him a hamburger for him if he took him to the site. The only reason he told him where the body was because he wanted a hamburger. Lopez further stated that when he'd asked Bonin what he would be doing if he were still at large, Bonin had replied, "I'd still be killing. I couldn't stop killing. It got easier with each one we did."
Again, he always keeps it 100, though.
You know what? You ain't lying.
You ain't lying.
You ain't lying.
He's always going to be honest. Yes.
100.
I would still be killing.
Oh, just wait. He gets even more 100 that makes you want to throw up in a few minutes. Bonin had 2 trials. I'm not going to go into the second one because it was like taking some charges off and nobody really gives a fuck. His first trial, lasted until January 6, 1982. On this date, the jury convicted Bonin of 10 of the murders for which he was tried, although he was found not guilty on the murders of Lundgren and King, and of committing sodomy upon Grabs, or of committing mayhem upon Lundgren, and of robbing one other victim. As these verdicts were read by the clerk of court, many relatives and friends of Bonin's victims wept openly. The following day, the prosecution and defense made alternative pleas for the actual sentence the jury should decide.
I forgot about the family sitting in the audience.
On January 20th, the jury further found that the special circumstances required within the California state law, basically multiple murders and robbery, had been met in the 10 murder cases for which they had found Bonin guilty, and thus unanimously recommended he receive the death penalty. The judge pronounced the death sentence upon Bonin on March 12, 1982. And here's just a little fun information right here. In the years on death row, Bonin undertook painting and writing as hobbies. He wrote a series of short stories called Doing Time, Stories from the Mind of a Death Row Prisoner, with 50 copies initially printed and published at $13 a copy. He also held hopes of publishing a science fiction novel. Over the years, Bonin received several minor awards for his artwork, short stories, and poems. I will say his diary entries were well written. Bonin also corresponded with numerous individuals, including the mothers of some of his victims.
What?
Although he never expressed any regret or remorse over having murdered their sons, purposely withholding information his victims' families sought and seemingly deriving pleasure from their discontent. On one occasion, Bonin informed the mother of the victim, Sean King, that her son had been his favorite victim because he was such a screamer.
What the fuck?
Told you he gets more disgusting.
Bruh.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just keep that shit to yourself.
Oh, not him. The method of Bonin's execution was superseded by lethal injection by the state of California in 1992 following the execution of Robert Alton Harris, the first inmate California had executed since 1967. Harris had exhibited evident symptoms of discomfort for up to 4 minutes through his 15-minute execution in the gas chamber. The symptoms had included convulsions. And at this time, Alex, I'd like to take things we don't give a fuck about for 500. As such, the state of California opted to use lethal injection as an alternative method of execution to the gas chamber, branding the gas chamber a cruel and unusual method of execution.
Although there has been so many things that have been proven, like, about those machines that they use for lethal injection and how, like, it's not giving the adequate anesthesia for pain and everything and how that's cruel and unusual. Bruh, they're not here for killing a butterfly. I'll tell you that.
Fun fact, in the state of Florida, the lethal injection is done by a random person that they pick. Anybody. Could be you, could be me, could be anybody. They pay them $150 to push the button. And they choose someone who's not within the correction department so that if something goes wrong or blah, blah, yada, yada, then it's just a random person that did it opposed to it being a worker. Plus, you probably don't want your worker to constantly do it over and over and over again because that would probably get a little bit, yeah, a little bit of fuck you up there. And then there's the whole
Well, they did have Old Sparky in Florida for a long time,
They did.
son. And that was built by the inmates. But I feel like every chair like that was built by inmates.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like every state's like, well, ours was built by inmates. How do you think the rest of it's been built?
I think the fuckers that are getting put in it should build it. You should build your own thing that's going to murder
In your
you.
own coffin?
Yes.
There are some,
But
like,
who am I?
Just a girl
Does a podcast.
with her best friend.
That's it.
Like, I get it. Death penalty, I wish it wasn't a thing. Because there's so many cases that people have been proved innocent after, like, posthumously, like, after they died. But there are some, like, in this case, that, like, there is no denying. That amendment should have been done yesterday, okay?
I'm here and I agree.
You should have taken it behind the police department and went, pew, pew.
I have mixed feelings on it because there is a satisfaction in watching an inmate be miserable and there for the rest of their life for what they did. But then there's the other side where they still have family to come visit. They still get to be alive, and that's not fair to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I have mixed emotions, and I guess I could never really tell you how I felt unless I had something horrible happen to a family member and I was, forced with, like, making decision. When they go to families and like, what do you want us to do? And some say they don't want the death penalty. Some say exactly what I said. I want the motherfucker to spend the rest of their life suffering there. And then some are like, nah, kill a motherfucker, eye for an eye. And I feel like it's not fair to give your whole opinion unless you're in that situation. Like,
That's
these
true.
motherfuckers are like, it's not right. Oh, da, 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 da. Well, that's probably because you've never had any crime happen to you. Tell me how you feel when you're sitting on the couch with your kids watching a show and someone kicks in your front door and shoots your kid next to you. Tell me if you still feel like they have all the fucking rights in the world. And come at me. I'm open and welcome to it.
Come at me, bro.
Bonin was executed by lethal injection.
But we digress. You know our feelings now, okay? You fuck with us. We fuck with you. You fuck around.
You find out.
Thank you.
So Bonin was executed by lethal injection inside the gas chamber at the San Quentin State Prison on February 23rd, 1996.
It's a good year. Good year.
Good year. He was the first person to be executed by lethal injection in the history of California, and his execution occurred 14 years after his first death sentence had been imposed. In a final interview given to a local radio station less than 24 hours before he was executed, Bonin claimed he had made peace with the fact he was about to die, adding that his only major regret in life was that he had not pursued his teenage passion of bowling long enough to have turned professional. He expressed
Of all the regrets in life,
that's the
regret.
one.
That's it, bro.
That's it.
Okay.
And rightfully a good regret.
It's such a good one.
He expressed his disagreement with the state's decision to execute him, stating, "A lot of people believe I should die for what I've done. I don't agree." Before further elaborating, "I have no anger towards anybody, but that doesn't mean I don't think the death penalty is wrong." Bonin denied any responsibility for his actions in his interview, stating, "I can say that I feel that these people believe I am guilty and that they feel done when I'm executed, that'll put a closure to it. But that is not the case, and they're going to find out."
Okay. Oh.
Okay.
Boy, don't threaten me with a good time.
At 6 p.m. on the day he was executed, Bonin was moved from his cell to a death watch cell, where he ordered his last meal: 2 large pizzas, 3 pints of ice cream, and 3 6-packs of Coca-Cola, while he ate watching an episode of Jeopardy! His final hours were spent in the company of 5 individuals whom he had chosen for this occasion. They included his attorney, chaplain, and a prospective biographer. Each later stated that Bonin seemed resigned to his fate. His attorney also added that he had not detected any remorse in his client.
I got a real serious question.
Is it though?
It might be forever in this situation. If you were on death row,
Okay.
it is your last meal and last TV show. What's the meal? What's the TV show?
The meal is definitely a steak and shrimp, baked potato,
Mm-hmm. All the fixins.
garlic bread, maybe a little salad with some homemade ranch.
Oh, yes.
Doesn't that sound good?
All right. What's the show?
I don't know what I want my last show to be.
I would have to say Schitt's Creek.
Not a fan, but
Well,
I'm here for it.
Watch an episode of Schitt's Creek. Or Game of Thrones.
Mm.
And if I'm going to do Game of Thrones, I might as well do the Red Wedding because it's a very depressing day.
True.
Last meal, I'll be eating all the gluten because I can't have it. I'm like, what am I worried about later? I'm like, ain't nobody shitting out guts except for posthumously, okay?
Right? Excellent choice. I'd probably watch an episode of Friends because that's what I watch to go to bed because it decreases my anxiety. So I'd probably be like, let's lower these nerves. They're a little high right now.
Do you know why people with high anxiety watch the same thing over and over again?
Because they don't have to think about it.
They don't have to think about it. They already know what's going to happen.
Yep.
And that I don't want to hit, but I hate that truth bomb, but I also am like, feel you. I've already watched Game of Thrones like 4 times.
Yep.
It takes me forever to pick up a new show.
Although I wouldn't mind the last thing I see before I die being Jon Snow. No offense, JJ.
Yeah. You know nothing, JJ.
At 11:45 p.m., Bonin was escorted from his holding cell into the execution chamber. In his final statement given to the prison warden 1 hour prior to his scheduled execution at midnight, Bonin again expressed no remorse for his crimes and left a note that stated, "I feel the death penalty is not an answer to the problems at hand. I feel it sends the wrong message to people of this country. Young people act as they see other people acting instead of the people tell them to act. I would advise that when a person has a thought of doing anything serious against the law, that before they did, they should go to a quiet place and think about it seriously." And I'm going to say that last sentence is actually outstanding advice. I tell that to my kids.
Yeah.
You're going to make a choice. I want you to think about it long and hard first and what's going to happen if you do it before you do it.
I mean, you take a nap, have something to eat.
Who knew that I was soul siblings with Bonin?
In only that regard.
JJ knew. Bonin was pronounced dead at 12:13 a.m. He was 49 at the time of his execution. None of Bonin's relatives chose to witness his execution, although the event was witnessed by several relatives of his victims, many of whom wept and embraced when his death was officially confirmed. According to several of the witnesses, Bonin's execution passed without complications, and he was heavily sedated throughout the latter stages of the procedure. On the subject, the governor, Pete Wilson, who had rejected a submitted plea for clemency from Bonin's attorneys 3 days prior to the execution, referred to Bonin as the poster boy for capital punishment, before adding that California's method of execution ensured his death was infinitively more pleasant than that endured by his victims.
I mean, that's 100.
And I couldn't agree more. And that, my friends, is the 5-part horrendous story of William Bonin.
Yeah, you can't
You're
unhear it.
You cannot unhear it.
You can't unhear it, but thank you for joining us for 5 episodes. I mean, I loved it, though. I mean, I loved it and hated it because there was a lot of times that I'm like, why am I asking questions? You know, I'm a glutton for punishment, but also very informative.
You're welcome.
I learned,
You're welcome.
I lived, I laughed, I loved. Now I'm on a toaster bath.
And this is why I live, laugh, and love you.
Oh, thank you.
Live, laugh, learn. What is it? Wait, what is it?
Live, laugh, love?
Yeah.
Yeah, live, laugh, love.
Our fact checker says that is correct. But if you're not sure, have him pull up his sleeve. He has it tattooed there on his arm.
He does. He also has this very smashing shirt he just got. He couldn't get the shorts, but it's, what is on it again? Birdies. He looks so
That's
precious.
how you know he's a dad. Not there's birds on it. It's a birdie.
It's a birdie.
That's how
He
you know he's a
almost
girl
had the
dad.
full outfit, and then Becky had to go and ruin his whole dream.
Look.
Look.
Linda.
Look.
Listen, Linda.
Some people wear LV head to toe. He's wearing little birdies head to toe, baby.
And not with me.
Not with me. Not today. Well, guys, don't forget to check us out on all our socials, Instagram, Facebook, all that jazz. Don't forget to subscribe and rate us, good or bad, hopefully good, on any platform, maybe every platform. That would be awesome, too.
That would be fantastic.
Check out our merch if you feel like it. We currently make $0.00. So all the funds we get are going into our Nappin' Wagon fund. And you know what? If you donate a lot, you're going to be the first person to take a nap in there. Okay?
Don't worry about the fact that we're inviting you into something called the Nappin' Wagon to take a nap.
It's nap like sleep, not kidnapping. I assure you.
Refurbished Airstream trailer. Don't worry. I know we covered the toy box stealer and Bonin, but come into our Nappin' Wagon. It's safe. Trust me. We have blankets and pillows and snacks.
Also, we're 2 loudmouths, okay? We're not going to get caught. I mean, wait. Freudian slip.
First of all, I don't talk, all right? If there's
Snitches
one
get
thing
stitches.
I learned from working in a prison and having a correctional officer daddy is don't say nothing.
You ain't seen shit. Don't say shit. Okay?
I wasn't there. I don't know what you're talking about.
What? No, I don't know nothing about that.
I don't recall.
I do not recall. What else is there? Oh, if you have your own Too Close to Home stories. And until next time,
Stay safe.
keep your head on the swivel.
And don't bring it so close to home you get in someone's napping wagon.
Yeah. Again, I want to iterate. It's not the kidnapping wagon. It's the napping,
And
sleeping.
Stay tuned for our contest. And the winner gets to take a nap.
You know
in the
what? I'm
napping
going to
wagon.
airbrush them. They're going to be in our little angel pose airbrush on the side. You know what I'm saying? Little
Sure,
baby chair butts
Sure,
just
sure.
hanging out.
Not creepy at all.
Bye.
Bye. I can't believe you're advertising to come take a nap in our napping wagon. Not creepy at all.
After I said it, I was like, ah, damn it. See, this is why I'm going to die. It wasn't the first thing I thought of. These bitches tried to kidnap me. If you enjoyed this episode of Too Close to Home, don't forget to rate and subscribe to us on most platforms. Follow us on our social media at Too Close Home Pod on Facebook, at Too Close Podcast on Instagram, or if you have your own Too Close to Home experience, shoot us your story at tooclosetohome@yahoo.com. Thanks for listening.